Hello F11 members and welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production video tutorials for issue 40, May 2015. I'm not sure if you're aware, but just recently, over the last week or so, Adobe has released the new version of Lightroom, Lightroom 6 and Lightroom CC. And unlike many upgrades, I think this one has some really quite interesting features in it that will be of use for us. And so what I aim to do is look at it over the next few months and see what we can glean. But the first thing I wanted to do this month was introduce you to the new exposure merging facility that is in the new Lightroom. And my initial impressions of this are that it will be very useful for us. So let's go through a couple of examples in part 1 and part 2 this month. I'm starting in an ice cave in Iceland. You'll maybe have read the Behind the Lens feature on this trip, so you'll maybe know all about it. And I've got here a shot that was, or a series of shots done, which are fairly graphic pictures of the ice. But of course the contrast range is pretty high. If I go from this image here, there, exposed for the highlights here, but of course losing a lot of information in the darker part of the ice there. And I did 3 different exposures of this image here, and what I'm going to do now is actually put them together. In fact, belay that, I'm going to use this series of images here. That's the end product, and these are the 3 images that I'm wanting to merge together. So I've done nothing to these 3 frames at the moment. They are raws straight out of the camera. The brightest one, as you can see, shows significant clipping of the highlights, but has good detail here in this left hand portion of the image in the darker bit of the ice. The middle exposure is a compromise, and the darkest exposure has been exposed to hang on to these highlights here. Now, it would be a relatively easy process to manually merge these images, but let's just see how good Lightroom's merging capability is. I've done nothing to them, no adjustments yet, so all I'm going to do is select these 3 images in Library module, and now just go back there, and now if I go up here to Photo, I'm just going to move the window down so you can see where I'm going with that. If I go up here to Photo and scroll down here to where it says Photo Merge, and click on that, and it's creating a HDR preview. I shudder at the use of that term HDR because I associate it with gruesome, overprocessed HDR pictures, but let's just see how it works. So there's the end result of that merged picture. It's bright, it's not how I want it now, but nevertheless it's merged the exposures nicely. You can see here on the right the options we have: auto align ticked and auto tone ticked, and deghost amount, and I've selected none because in this image there's nothing moving. There's perfect registration between the 3 frames, locked off on the tripod, shot with my 100mm macro lens, and there should be no problems merging the images together. The deghost amount here is for when you have things moving in the frame, which will always cause merging problems. So that's basically the preview that it's giving me here. So I'm going to just click on merge now, and it's done it. In fact, I'm just waiting for it to do it, and there it is. There is the merged version. So, and it's created, you'll see up here, it's given it a number. Afterward it says HDR, which just sends chills through my body. Nevertheless, it's created a DNG, which is a digital negative image. And now what I'm going to do is open that in Develop Module and take it from there. So now at this stage, just go back to library mode 1 second before we do so. You'll see I'd entered in the caption information into the 3 raw images here in Lightroom. That's been transferred into the new DNG image, and the pixel dimensions have remained the same, as have all the information here in terms of the exposure. So let's go to Develop Module. And at this stage now, I just carry on with the picture as I would any other. Okay, so at this case, we can see we have a bit of clipping of both shadows and highlights there. Just a few highlights clipping. You can see coming down here, we notice the difference already, because this is an HDR picture. Significant highlight recovery and shadow boosting has taken place. So I don't really have scope to do anything really about those tiny few highlights that are clipping. But really, I've got a really good spread of tones here. I can't alter my black or white points either. Those have already been altered, and the toe of the histogram is right up against the extreme of the left here, and the extreme right here as well. So I'm going to go straight down to the tone curve and just alter the overall density of the picture to where I want it to be, and really just by pulling it back to about there and adding just a touch of vibrance, that is pretty much it. Of course, as always, I would sharpen the image. So clip on Sharpen Scenic here. I'm not going to apply much masking because there's detail pretty much throughout the image, so just hold down Alt, slide masking to the right, just put a touch of masking in here, and really that is it. Now I would come to export the image as normal, as a TIFF, and I could now choose to work on it subsequently in Photoshop, but actually I think it's done and I'm very happy with that picture. And on this initial test, I would have to say photo merge in Lightroom is a very useful feature to have. So let's just recap on all of that by doing another one. I just merged 3 exposures there. I'm now going to look at these images here, which range over 5 stops of exposure, to merge them together and see how it copes with that. Let's just go back to library mode here, and it's these 5 images here, from the brightest here to the darkest here, that I'm now going to experiment with merging. So again, just select those 5 images, go to Photo, Photo Merge, and click on that, and it's creating the preview. So because I'm merging 5 images as opposed to 3 here, it's taking a little bit longer. The bigger the image is, also the longer it's going to take. Nevertheless, that's taken my computer about 20 seconds to do that, which is not bad at all really. That of course is just the preview. Now if I look at that and click on merge, it will take another few seconds to create the merged DNG, and up here you can see the progress bar of how it's going, and there it is. So let's look at that full screen now. Again, it's an image that I would tend to now work on, and I'm just going to take it into the develop module and ask again what needs to be done. Again, you can see it comes in imported with already exposure, highlights and shadow and black and white points already set. So really my options now are just darkening down the image a touch, and I could of course use the grad tool, which I'm going to do. I'm going to darken this down to about, I'm just looking at the bottom of the image here. In fact, I'm going to try and get a bit clever here. So let's go back to linear there and put in medium contrast, and now I'm going to use the grad tool here to just affect this kind of area of the image, and now darken the top of the image a bit, just a touch really, and that's done. I would then, its colors are pretty full on, some lovely blue tones there. I'm now going to add my sharpening as always. There's detail right throughout this picture, so I'm not going to apply any masking, and that's it. I'd now export this picture and it's pretty much finished. So there you go, that's an introduction to the use of photo merging in the new Adobe Lightroom CC. What we're going to do in part 2 is look at a bit more of a thorny problem here. If I go back to library mode, we're going to do exposure merging utilizing a picture with someone in the frame. That someone being, guess who? Mrs. Wendy Noton, in that same ice cave, and I'm going to attempt to merge these pictures here using the new merge capability. But of course the problem being, no matter how Wendy stood immobile, there will be movement. So let's see how it deals with that. I'll see you in part 2.